I tied my mule outside the church, like I always did. But this time he wouldn't move. Not an inch. Not even when I pulled the reins or clapped near his ears. He just stood there, stiff as wood, staring straight at the church steps. His eyes didn't blink. His ears didn't twitch. It was like something invisible was holding him there. I'd had that mule for 9 years. Never gave me trouble. Climbed hills, crossed rivers, even walked through gunfire once during that barn fire over in Cottonwood. But now he was frozen, right outside our little church, acting like the steps were made of fire. I tried again. I tugged the reins and said his name, Buck. Nothing, just that same stiff stance. He was breathing fine. No limp, no signs of pain. His hooves were planted deep in the dry dirt, and the sun hadn't even reached full strength yet. Still cool air. Suit yourself. I muttered. I stepped up the old wooden stairs and went inside alone. The place smelled like dust and oil lamps. No one else was there. Preacher Sims had gone to the next town over to help bury someone's boy. I was just stopping by to leave some dry goods and sweep the floor for Sunday. Nothing fancy. Just habit. I kept thinking about Buck the whole time. Out the little stained glass window, I could see the top of his head, still staring forward. Didn't eat from the feed bag I left. Didn't swat flies with his tail. Just watched. When I stepped back outside, nothing had changed. I walked around him, tried, patting his side. He didn't flinch. His eyes followed the steps again, slow and steady. His nose twitched once. Then he let out a soft grunt, like a warning, not a complaint. That's when I felt it. Not a sound, not a touch, just stillness, like the air had stopped moving, like time paused. No birds, no breeze, not even the buzzing of gnats. Just me, the mule, and the church steps baking in the quiet. I loaded the broom and the empty sack back onto his side. Still, he wouldn't go. I sighed and sat on the edge of the bottom step. Figured I'd wait a few minutes. Give him time. Sometimes animals sense things we don't. Across the road, old man Harper's dog barked once, then ran on the porch. A squirrel darted out a tree, froze in the road, and turned back. I watched them, feeling something twist low in my gut, like a string pulled tight. I looked back at Buck. His head had lowered slightly. He wasn't staring at the whole church anymore. Just a step, the second one from the bottom. I leaned down and touched it, warm like the rest of the stairs. Nothing odd, no markings, just old wood, gray with years of dust and dry weather. I tapped it with my boot, solid. I didn't want to think it was anything. Maybe the mule just had a stubborn mood. Maybe the sun was playing tricks on both of us. Still, when I tried to lead him again, he locked up his legs and let out another low grunt. Not a bray, not a call. A warning. I gave up, took off his saddle, and let him rest. Figured I'd walk home and come back later. But when I reached the edge of the road and turned, I saw him again. Not resting, not grazing. Still standing in that same spot, eyes fixed on the steps. That night, I dreamed of wood. Just plain, cracked wood, staring at it, smelling it. Like I was stuck looking down at a floor forever. I woke up before dawn, sweating. Couldn't shake the feeling. By mid-morning, I walked back to town. Buck was still there. Not even a mark in the dirt to show he'd moved. A pile of flies circled his feed, untouched. The air was dead, still around the church again. Even the curtains in the preacher's house next door weren't swaying. Felt like a painting. I stepped up the stairs again. Tapped the second step with my boot. It creaked faintly, but no different than before. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing, but the hairs on my neck stood up. That step didn't feel like it anymore. It felt like it was watching me. I stood fast and backed away. Buck snorted again. His ears flicked toward me, then back toward the step. I ain't the kind to jump at shadows, but I ain't stupid either. Something had my mule spooked, and he'd never been wrong before. He once avoided a bridge that collapsed the next day. He once refused to cross a patch of ground that turned out to be a rattlesnake nest. He wasn't lazy. He was a guard. And now, he was guarding the church steps like they held something wicked. I asked around town, casual-like, asked if anyone else noticed anything strange near the church. Most folks just shrugged, said animals acted odd sometimes. Old lady Millie said her cat wouldn't cross the road in front of the church since Sunday. Said it hissed when she tried to carry it across. Young Caleb, the preacher's nephew, said something too. Said he thought he heard a baby crying one night when he passed by. But his ma told him it was just the wind. There wasn't no wind, he whispered. That made my stomach drop a little. I went back again that evening, just to check. Buck was still there, still staring, still rooted to the earth. I touched his neck. Warm, alive, but stiff, loyal. I sat next to him on the dusty ground. We watched the sun dip behind the hills together. I didn't speak. Neither did he. There was a heaviness in the air I couldn't shake. Something was wrong. I didn't know what, but whatever it was sitting under those steps. And my mule wasn't going anywhere until someone did something about it. The next morning, I found him in the exact same spot. Buck hadn't moved an inch. His hooves were still planted firm in the dirt, legs straight, head low, staring at the second step. His feed bag lay untouched. Water bucket still full. I walked around him slowly. He didn't react. Just watched the steps like something might crawl out of them. I waved my hand in front of his face. His eyes blinked once, but never looked away from the church. A few kids across the road were tossing pebbles into a tin can. One of the rocks bounced and rolled toward the church. It didn't even touch Buck, but he gave a low grunt when it came close. The kind of sound that says, "Stay back." The kids ran off. I sat down on the edge of the church porch again, same as before. The air was still. Not a single leaf moved in the trees. The flag outside the preacher's house hung limp. Not even a fly buzzed near my face. That kind of quiet is heavy. Not peaceful. More like the air was waiting for something. I took off my hat and rubbed the back of my neck. It was hot already, but the heat felt strange. Thick, like it stuck to your skin and wouldn't let go. Buck gave another soft noise, deeper this time. I turned. His eyes flicked toward me, just for a second, then back to the step. He was watching something I couldn't see. I didn't stay long. It was getting to me. I grabbed my saddlebag and walked down the road. The air felt normal again the moment I passed the old willow tree near the post office. Birds chirped. Bugs flew past my ears. Wind touched my arms. It was like stepping out of a room and into the world again. Later that day, I saw Miss Clara outside her feed store. She was sweeping the porch, but her broom kept hitting the rail like her mind was elsewhere. "Strange about your mule," she said without looking up. "You seen him?" "Heard about him." "Heard he's still standing there, not moving. 3 days now." She nodded slowly. "My cat won't go near the church either. Sat on the windowsill last night and just stared, fur raised up, ears flat. I ain't never seen her like that." I didn't say much, just nodded and kept walking. But something inside me tightened. That night, I didn't sleep much. Kept hearing little things, creaks in the house, wind that wasn't there, and once a knock. 3 slow taps. I got up and looked around. Nothing, just empty dark and the sound of my own breath. The next day, I went to check again. Couldn't help it. Buck was still there, still staring. But now there was something else. 2 crows sat on the edge of the church roof. Not moving, not cawing, just staring down at the same steps. When I looked up, they didn't fly off. Just blinked, like they were waiting too. I stepped closer. The smell hit me, faint like old dirt and wet stone. Not rot, not manure, just wrong. The kind of smell that doesn't belong on a sunny day in dry air. I knelt near the steps again, tapped the second one. Still solid. I pressed my hand against the wood. Cold, too cold for morning sun. My hand tingled when I pulled it back, like I'd touched the doorknob in winter. Buck shifted slightly. His hoof scraped the dirt once, like he wanted to dig, but he didn't move more than that, just gave another low grunt. I looked up at the sky. Clouds were piling up fast. Heavy, gray ones, but no wind. The flag still didn't move. That afternoon, old Doc Haver came riding by. He stopped his buggy and leaned out. "You seen this weather?" I nodded. Pressure's dropping fast. Animals don't like it. My goat broke through the fence last night, ran off into the woods. Never done that before. I pointed toward the church. He's been like that for days now. Doc stared at the mule, whistled low. "Ain't right," he said. He didn't stop long. No one ever did anymore. That evening I saw something strange. I was watching from a distance. Didn't want to disturb Buck again. The sun was setting, throwing long shadows across the steps. One of those shadows, it moved different. The trees all leaned to the east, but this shadow stretched west, like it wasn't coming from the sun at all, just reaching, almost like a hand. I blinked, and it was gone. Buck didn't blink. I slept badly again that night. Dreamed of wooden stairs and something small knocking underneath. I could hear breathing, fast and shallow. Then it would stop, then start again, always from below me. In the dream, I stood on the church porch with baby in my arms. I didn't know where it came from. It wasn't crying, just staring up at me with eyes too big for its head. I woke up shaking. Didn't eat breakfast. Just walked back to town. And there he was, still waiting. Only now, the ground around the second step had changed. It looked damp, darker than the rest, and the grass nearby had turned yellow overnight. I crouched close. The dirt had cracked slightly. A line, thin as a hair, ran right across the front of the second step. I touched it with a twig. The twig snapped in half. The two crows were back. This time they were closer, on the rail beside the steps. They looked straight at me. One cawed once and then went silent. I looked at Buck again. His eyes were wide. He took one small step forward. Not away, toward the step. Then he froze. He lowered his head, almost touching the wood, then let out a soft, broken sound. Not like a warning this time. It sounded like grief. I backed away, slowly. The stillness in the air was worse now, like something old had just opened its eyes. I didn't know what was under that step, but I knew I'd have to find out, because Buck wasn't giving up, and something under there had waited long enough. I brought a shovel the next morning, not to cause trouble, just to look. I told myself I wouldn't dig unless I had to, but the ground near that second step was darker than ever now, like it had soaked up something deep. Buck was still there, still watching, but something was different. He wasn't tense. He looked tired, like he'd been holding watch too long, like he needed help. The sky was gray above us, not storm gray, just dull, flat, no light coming through, no sound either. The birds that used to perch on the church roof were gone. The trees nearby didn't move. Even the flies had vanished. I touched the ground again. It felt soft like wet clay, but it hadn't rained in weeks. I looked at Buck. He blinked once, slowly. That was enough. I stuck the shovel into the dirt just beside the second step. The soil gave way too easy. No roots, no rocks, just soft earth that pulled apart like ash. I dug slow, careful, just enough to see what was under there. I wasn't ready to find anything, but I knew something was there. The first thing I found was cloth. White, thin. I stopped. I looked around, but no one was nearby. Town was quiet. Doors shut. Curtains pulled. It felt like the world had gone still for me and the mule. I reached down and brushed the dirt off the fabric. It was old, fragile, folded in on itself like it had been tucked around something. I pulled gently. The corner came loose. Under it, I saw more fabric, layers of it, wrapped tight like a bundle. I didn't open it. Not yet. The smell came up first. Not rot, not fresh death, just a cold, bitter smell, like old candles in a locked room, like dry stone after storm. It sat heavy in my nose, made my stomach turn slow. I backed up and sat on the top step. My hands were shaking. Buck took one step forward. That was the first time he'd moved in nearly a week. He came right up to the hole and stopped. His breath was slow. His head lowered again. Eyes locked on the spot I dug. He gave that soft sound again. Like sadness. Like he knew. I didn't dig any more that day. I covered the cloth with dirt, packed it down with my hands, and sat beside Buck until sunset. We watched the sky grow dim, watched the first star appear. Then I walked home without a word. That night, I didn't dream. I just lay awake and thought about babies, about all the women I'd seen pass through this town, about the preacher and his trips to other towns, about the little blue blanket I once saw folded under the church pew and never again. I thought about things folks don't say out loud, and I thought about what kind of man would bury something on holy ground. The next morning, I returned. Buck was still there. Now there were flies, a dozen or more, swarming just above the dirt, but never landing, flying in small circles like they were afraid to touch down. The ground was cracked now, thin lines across the packed earth like veins under skin. I didn't bring the shovel this time. I just sat. The air was thick again. Still no wind. Still no birds. I felt watched, not by Buck, not by people, by something under us, or behind the stone walls of the church. I could hear something, not loud, just a rhythm, soft, slow, like a breath. Inhale, hold, exhale. It came from below the step. I pressed my hand to the wood again. It pulsed under my palm, a faint warmth, then cold, then warm again. My skin crawled. I pulled away. I stood up and walked around the church. Looked for anything strange. Marks, scratches, broken windows. Nothing. Just the same old place. Except at the back of the church, near the little side door, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A small shoe, half buried in weeds. Child size. Leather, cracked and worn. I picked it up. It was stiff from age, but not ruined. No dirt inside. No animal bites. It had been placed there, not lost. I brought it around front and set it beside the steps. Buck turned his head. He looked at the shoe, then back at the hole. I didn't need to dig again. I knew what I'd find, but knowing and believing ain't the same thing. I sat back down and waited for what I didn't know. Maybe for the preacher to return. Maybe for the truth to rise up by itself. Maybe for the ground to open. I watched the flies circle. Watched the clouds roll by without moving. Watched the church stay silent. And I realized something strange. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of all the things not said. Full of all the names not spoken. Full of secrets that sank into the wood and stayed there. The church had buried something. Not just in the dirt, but in its own bones. And my mule, old, stubborn Buck, had known it all along. He wasn't guarding the steps anymore. He was waiting for me to do something, to uncover it, to name it, to lift it up from the dark. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Not alone. I woke in the middle of the night to a sound I couldn't explain. 3 slow chimes. Far off, carried through the stillness like a whisper. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. My window was open. The night air was dead calm. I didn't hear wind or owls or even crickets. Just those 3 quiet rings fading into nothing. It took a few seconds before I understood. The church bell. No one was there to ring it. No one had a key but Preacher Sims, and he was still out of town. The bell rope was tied off inside, behind locked doors. I knew that for a fact. Still, the sound had come. Slow, sad, like someone was calling something home. I didn't sleep after that. At dawn, I walked back to town. My boots felt heavy. The air pressed down on me, thick like smoke, though the sky was clear. No clouds, no sun, just pale gray light, like the world forgot how to shine. Buck was still there, but he was different now. He wasn't tense, wasn't frozen, just standing, quiet, like he had done what he came to do, like it wasn't his job anymore. He looked at me as I came close, then turned his head toward the church again. Not the step this time. The door, the side door was cracked open. I stopped cold. That door had been shut tight for over a week. I checked it myself. And Preacher Sims always locked it before traveling. I stepped closer, slow. The door creaked as I touched it, swinging open just enough to let me in. Inside smelled worse than before. Not rot, not mold, just wrong. Like wet cloth and old breath. The pews were still in place, the pulpit untouched, but the light through the windows looked wrong. Too dull, too blue, and the church was colder than it should have been. My boots echoed soft on the wood. No dust rose when I walked. The floor felt clean, scrubbed. I stepped toward the front. Then I saw it. On the pew closest to the altar, something small was lying flat. A baby's bonnet. Thin, white, edged with soft lace. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't touch it. Then I turned and left. Fast. Outside, Buck watched me. He gave a soft sound, something between a breath and a sigh. I didn't say anything. I just sat down next to him, knees in the dirt, hands shaking. Then I realized something else. Time was wrong. My watch had stopped. The second hand wasn't moving. It was still ticking when I left the house. I checked the sun. It hadn't moved either. Still stuck in the same gray light. Like the whole town had paused. I heard a knock behind me. Not on the door. From under the steps. 1, 2, 3. I didn't move. Buck didn't move either. But his eyes were wide. The church bell rang again. Once. Then silence. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking, but I forced them to hold. I walked around the building, looking for anyone else. No one. Houses shut. Streets empty. No dogs. No voices. Not even smoke from chimneys. The town was stuck, held in place. I turned back and stared at the church, and then I saw something that made my blood freeze. At the window above the pulpit, the round one with the blue and red glass, something moved, a shadow, just for a second, like someone walked past on the inside. But no one was in there. I stepped forward. Then I stopped. Buck stepped in front of me. His body blocked the path. Not aggressive, just firm, like he was telling me no. I backed up. He returned to his place by the steps. And that's when the birds came back. Not all at once. Just one, a red-winged blackbird, landing on the church rail. It looked around, twitched, flew off. Then another came. Then 2 more. Soon the trees started to sway. Just a little. The air changed again. A soft breeze passed through, like the land had taken a breath. But something was still here. Something deep. I looked at the dirt patch again. It hadn't moved. Still cracked, still damp looking. But I could feel something different now. Not pressure. Presence. Like someone was watching from beneath. That night, I stayed in town. Didn't go home. I sat on the bench across from the church and waited. Waited for the sky to shift. Waited for the bells. Waited for something to tell me what to do. The wind picked up around midnight. And for the first time in over a week, Buck lay down. He folded his legs and rested his head on the ground, eyes open, watching the steps, but not guarding anymore, just waiting. I understood then. Whatever was under there didn't want to be buried anymore. It had waited long enough, and it wasn't going to rest until someone brought it to light. I came at sunrise with the shovel again. The town was still asleep. Smoke hadn't started curling from chimneys yet. The church stood quiet, shadowed in gray light. The wind had died. The air was thick again, heavy like a full breath held too long. Buck was already there, still lying down near the steps, watching, waiting. He didn't move as I approached, just turned his head slightly as if to say, "Now." I didn't speak, didn't hesitate. I stepped to the patch of earth beside the second step and set the shovel down. My hands shook as I gripped the handle. The dirt crumbled easy, like it had been waiting to be disturbed. The first few inches were soft, damp. Then I hit the cloth again. I dropped to my knees and brushed it aside with my hands. The cloth was thin, pale, folded neat like it had been wrapped around something small. My stomach turned. I peeled back one layer, then another. There it was, a tiny wooden box. No name carved, no markings, just plain dry wood, edges worn smooth by time and soil. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened it. Inside was a baby, not whole anymore, just bone and linen, curled on itself like it never got a full breath in life. The skull was small, fragile, no bigger than my hand. Bits of cloth still wrapped around its chest like a blanket. Something shiny lay tucked beneath its neck, a small silver pin in the shape of a cross. I froze, didn't cry, didn't speak. I just sat there in the dirt, holding the truth. Buck let out a breath behind me, a long, slow one, like relief. I looked back. He had closed his eyes. I placed the box gently on the step. Then I sat beside it. The sky turned pale gold as the sun finally rose. Still no sound, still no people. Just me, the mule, and the bones of a child who had been buried in silence. I didn't know who it was, but I had guesses. I thought of the preacher, of his sudden trips to other towns, of the bonnet on the church pew, of the crying some said they'd heard near the church, even when it was empty. I thought of the sick niece he once mentioned, back when I first met him. He said she died on the road, and they buried her elsewhere. But maybe she never left. Maybe someone couldn't bear the shame. Maybe someone wrapped her up in cloth and laid her under the steps in the place meant for healing. I looked at the small silver cross again. It was old but polished. Someone had cared once, then buried the care with the body. I sat there until the town woke. Birds came back. One landed near the church, pecked the ground, then flew off. A breeze picked up, warm this time. The trees rustled like they'd forgotten how to move. I stood, took the box, and carried it to the preacher's garden behind the church. There was soft earth there near the roses. I dug a fresh grave, small, clean. I placed the child inside, gently, like laying down a breath. Then I covered her with soil. No box this time, just the earth, just peace. I placed a flat stone on top. No words, no names, just stillness. Buck walked over. He stood beside the grave, lowered his head once, then turned toward the road, and walked away. No bridle, no reins. He didn't look back, just walked slow and steady, like a job was done. I didn't call after him, didn't try to stop him. He knew where to go. I sat on the church steps until noon. No shadows moved across the grass. No bells rang. The sky stayed blue, peaceful, a quiet kind of clean. Later that day, I saw the preacher return. His wagon rolled slow into town. He smiled when he saw me. Then he saw the stone by the roses. He stopped smiling. He didn't ask anything, just nodded once tight, like a man who's been carrying a secret, and finally dropped it. He never preached again. Left town the next week. No goodbye, no sermon, just gone. That night, I dreamed of the child. She wasn't crying. She wasn't cold. She just looked at me, eyes wide, soft, then turned and walked into grass. And the wind followed her. It's been weeks now. The grass has grown back where I buried her. The patch near the church steps is green again, soft, like the ground never split, like the silence never hummed. No one talks about what happened. Not really, but they know. They saw Buck leave. They saw the preacher disappear. They saw the stone behind the church. And they felt it too, that shift in the air, like a fever breaking. The church is open again. Miss Clara lights candles on Sundays. Doc, have her read a passage now and then. Nothing loud, no sermons, just quiet prayers and softer hymns. The bell hasn't rung since. The rope still hangs, but no one pulls it. Maybe that's for the best. Some things don't need calling. I still sit on the steps some mornings. The sun hits them different now. Warmer. No more cold spots. No more knocks from underneath. No more shadows moving the wrong way. Just light. The other day, a girl skipped past me, humming. She stopped, looked at the church, then smiled. That's how I knew. Whatever was waiting under there, whatever had been forgotten, it was at peace now. The land feels lighter. The air breathes again. Birds nest in the eaves. Stray cats curl under the porch. The willow tree by the post office sways like it used to. Even Buck came back once. I found him standing by my gate like he never left. Dusty, calm. He blinked at me. I nodded. He wandered to the trough, drank, then laid down in the shade. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. He stayed a day, then walked off again. Toward the hills this time. Toward quiet places. I watched him go. His hoof prints stayed in the dirt for days after. Like the land didn't want to forget. Like I shouldn't forget either. Sometimes I still dream of her. Not in a scary way. She just stands in the sunlight, bonnet in her hands, head tilted, watching the wind move through the grass. She's not waiting anymore. She's not buried. She's just there, like memory, like breath. That's the kind of ending I understand. No fire, no shouting, just a soft step into the day. A mule who knew, a church that held a secret, a man who listened, slow and late, but listened all the same, and a baby finally put to rest.